when a stone statue is named something, then the identity of the god stands in front of you. Until that, it is only stone. That's why I say stone is not a god. You can have a sculpture, but when you call it Shiva, then the entire concept of Shiva, irrespective of the statue, there is an image of Shiva in your mind. You know? So, divinity is again not, it comes from something, but it doesn't belong to a particular thing, you know. It's how you perceive the world. For example, in India, we have certain, there was a person in India who was called Gora Chambhar. Chambhar means person who makes shoes. He was slightly fair skinned. And people like him have achieved divinity. It is very strange because somebody like him is not allowed to go to the temple. He's from the lower caste, so if his shadow falls on somebody, he will have a bath. And such people have attained divinity. So, divinity arises from the fact how you look at your work. How you look at your work, you know. If you see it as a way of achieving God, if you're making shoes, then you will receive God. So, even though you have a medium to achieve God, there is no guarantee that that is the only medium to achieve God. Just because you're playing Rudra Veena and it is associated with Shiva, not necessarily you're going to attain divinity. It's how you approach the Rudra Veena and how you approach that form will lead you to the path of divinity. So I feel it is possible for anybody. There was another person in India who was just making a bag out of the camel's stomach and selling water. And he attained divinity. For a person who has not read the religious scriptures, doesn't know what the holy words are, only knows that there is Ram, only one word, Ram. And his vision of Ram gave him divinity. So divinity is something you cannot say exists or does not exist. It is also a suggestion. It is also formlessness. I wouldn't apply only to the form of Dhrupad in terms of manipulation of the art or a relationship to the as arriving to a relationship to the past in art form. I think every art form has that responsibility. Dhrupad, Khyal, Thumri, Tappa, even painting, I would say, or even architecture. I mean, we are because of what our past is. Our past has given us a vision for the future. So, if you don't have a link with the past, I think you're going to somehow lose your way. But it is difficult to say that the form alone will manifest this kind of an idea because Dhrupad is very old, that it will necessarily have, it has a link to the past, but it is more important what the human being of that generation does with that form. It is also his responsibility of how he sees this form. He wants to use it to his benefit, or he wants to bring out what the form is all about, irrespective of what he is going to get from it. This is a decision that the human being who is practicing that form has to make today, now. His teacher or his ancestors might have made a different decision on the form. But if he's just thinking of keeping alive that tradition, then he has to make a conscious effort on what to do to keep the alive, because sometimes you have to change your ways to keep the tradition alive. But how much you change is, I think, is a very big decision on how much you need to change. And that practical decision has to be arrived at in order for for the link to go in the past. Otherwise, the art will not survive, because every art is like a lake. The lake has to receive new water, and some of the old water has to evaporate. But for the lake to exist, the water has to be there. And certain characteristics of the water, like if we say Ganga, there is a characteristic of Ganga. The water will not decay, it will be whatever. So to maintain that characteristics, irrespective of what you think, you have to be in that frame of practical decision to arrive to take a necessary definite action to make that possible. Without that, it's not possible. We can say Drupad is very, what do you say, it is a very sublime experience, or it is a very divine experience, but not necessarily so if the musician is really bad. In any art form, that experience can come through, but it depends on the person. Saying that it is like this would make it fixed, which it is not. So you have to break open it and re-say it again and again and again. You're not trying to establish a fact. You're just trying to rediscover what is written and rewrite it again in so many different ways without trying to destroy what the form is. Art is not possible without an openness. If you're not transparent, which is you're open, it's not possible to produce good art or deep resonating art. It's not possible. All that you see, you hear, you smell, or you speak is an experience, or like you say, oh, this is a pillow. So the moment you say, oh, this is a pillow, you're taking inside something within you, and you think about it. And that expression which comes out is art, basically. It is a medium of expression. Music or Drupad is just a vehicle for that expression. I want to go on the road, I go on a car, or I go in a horse chariot. It is just a vehicle, it is just a medium. But finally, art will use that medium to show itself. And art cannot be confined. It can be, it's like a painting. It has a framework. This is modern art, but it has a framework. Everything has a framework. So that framework is the medium you follow, or the genre you follow. Having said that, obviously, there is also Pablo Picasso. He began with classical drawings, and he went to a form where he broke dimensions and lines, and for someone who doesn't understand art, will not understand what he is saying. But an artist requires to be open in mind. So if I want to work with somebody, I am very conscious of the fact that Rudra Veena must have a place. Because if the Veena doesn't have a place, it will not express what it wants to say. It will only say half of the things it wants to say. Then the form in which it can say is the language. It's its mother tongue. So that form should have a space. And that form and that language should, in a way, meet somebody else's ideas, no matter what genre he belongs to, whether he's a modern artist or he's a tribal painter or he's a poet or he's a writer. If two minds can meet, then they can continue working no matter where they come from. I really believe in that. If those two minds cannot meet, there is a possibility that even though their minds meet, the work at that point need not necessarily come together. It is, you can say, it is like a leela. It is pre-decided what will work together and what will not work together. And it is nature that everything will not work at every time. So just keeping this in mind, if you're friends with somebody and you accept and understand their level of work, it is easier to work with that person. For me, Mr. Daniélou was a person who opened a window for people to see what is Indian and what is the ideology of Indian art and the philosophy, and how should you be looking at it. So, because his is not only concerned to music, his work is concerned to a whole lot of, it's a big spectrum of things. And when there is a big spectrum of things, somebody is trying to see there are so many windows, possibilities of looking at this one, you can call it Indianness. And this is how you look at it, because not everybody has the same perspective. In different parts of the world, there are different ways of looking at things. And sometimes, maybe I think it's also postmodernism or the effects of war or technology has limited in a way how we look at things, culture, arts, philosophies of the world, only to have a single dimension of looking at it. So I think what he did, he says, no, this coexists with this. Just because you don't agree to this form of vision, it does not mean it does not exist. And that's what I think about Alain Daniélou. It's like spreading out a carpet and arranging things only and making, pushing you to see what is possible, what else is possible from there, and how we can connect to that, and what can we draw from it. Because he believes that a culture is very far, so there is some relationship to the past, and how we can, basically how to refine yourself as a human being, and how to go much farther in terms of vision of thinking and perceiving the world, making it much more simplistic, I feel. Talking about culture, various cultures across the world, I think cultures are a very geographically born phenomenons. Like for example, if you say church, you walk with your shoes inside the church. It is a geographical factor, because in winter it gets very cold. In India, you don't walk with your shoes into the temple because there's too much dirt on the shoes. You don't want to carry the shoes inside. But in terms of work, I think there are only two kinds of people in the universe. Ones who are sensitive and ones who are not so sensitive. Your sensitivity will be tapped by those kind of people which are equally sensitive to you. I would not worry about where I'm playing the work. I would worry about how truly I present that work, because I want to understand. Because many times you meet a lot of people who are from different cultures, who don't understand your work. I mean, when you say they don't understand your work, it is not that they don't know what sensitivity is or what the small nuances are, because their genres also present the same things to them. If it is filmmaking or writing or poetry, or it is a kabuki master, or it is a Western classic musician, or even I would say even someone like Mick Jagger. I believe all of them at a point go through the same amount of difficulties and the same kind of difficulties. Sometimes, strangely enough, you find a solution to your work in something which doesn't belong to your genre. And you say, oh, this is what it is, and this is my problem, I should be dealing with this. Or you can say, oh, this is exactly what I'm saying. It is not different, only the language is different. So, again, like cultures become like different windows to look at the same thing. It is like Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Sikhism, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism. They all search for God, which is only one. But there is a path they follow, which is a practiced path, which if you don't practice, you will not get an idea of God. You have to follow some path to reach God. After all, God is the same. He never said, I was this or I was that. We have a faith, and that faith becomes a kind of a culture. The culture becomes a kind of a boat that goes in that direction. I'm not culturally shocked when I see a lot of different cultures, whether it be the Aboriginals of Australia or the African tribes, or the very French bourgeoisie, or the typical Brahmin priest. These are not shocking for me. The behavior of the person is shocking for me, which I don't relate to, which sometimes is not there. Sometimes these are the finest people in the world who are yet again giving a direction to your work and reassuring you that you're doing good work. So culture is a platform which breeds in a way empathy to your work, and it enforces what you believe in all around the world, and every time it pushes you in the right direction if it is rightly understood. I'm very open in that manner. I would play the same thing that I'm playing at home. I would play in the same manner. I would look at the same work and the same thing, because someone is going to say, this you played over here should have been more like this. And that takes me much more one step to the goal, which is truth, or whatever you call it, realization of God, or in search of excellence, or a refinement of the self. I think that is the purpose of one's work in life, finally. The learning method is very unique in our. The Indian system says, Ek sadho sab sadhe, sab sadhe sab jai. If you stick to one, you will understand everything. If you try to understand everything, you'll understand nothing. So you have to begin simple. If you want to understand something, you have to begin simple. Within one rag, You learn all the techniques of improvisation. And in relationship to that rag, you learn the other things. Like all the trees and the bushes are in relationship to one another. We do not see it every day, but they are in relationship. We have to search that relationship for the relationship to be real, to be transferred to the next generation. It has to be my own experience. I cannot just accumulate knowledge and give it to somebody else. It is not so real. It is just know-how. It is not knowledge. It is not wisdom. You just know. So just if you want to sustain an art form, knowing is not enough. You should be able to transmit your experience of that work. So you begin with 2 rags. You spend 7 years, 8 years in one rag. You spend 7 years, 8 years in the second rag. Whilst doing those rags suggest to you different things. When you go into an inquiry of these things, through these rags, those rags open in a manner which is yours. Not what they are, also what they can be. They are already. You cannot negate that this is Bhairav, this is Ahir Bhairav, this is, so and so, they are. But there is something more to a tree than just being a tree. You can say it is a tree and you have a definite shape you can draw. Like in school, they teach you that leaves are green, but they don't show you that each green of the tree, of the leaf of the tree is a different green. That you see over years of looking at the tree, you say, this is light green, this is dark green, this is different green. The green in Europe is different, the green in Sundarbans in West Bengal is different, in the Malabar coast is different, in Ratnagiri coast in India is different. In Czech it is different, in America it is different, in Japan it is different. So if you don't spend time with that one single tree again and again, you'll never gain that experience. And that experience of your life is the most important thing to transmit than just the work. Because that experience is one of the biggest pillars of keeping that tradition alive. If you can't experience that art form, it is dead. It is not alive. So for that, it is very necessary you learn only how much you can digest. It's like food. It's such a big turkey in front of you, you cannot eat. You will eat as much as you can digest. So you have to take only as much as you can digest. You have to receive only that much. And then that experience you can cook for somebody else. You can cook for 50 people and pass that experience on. So it is very important how much you intake in terms of how much you can receive, accept, digest, perceive, and then pass it on. If you take much more than what you can digest, you will just pass on information, not knowledge. And in knowledge lies the seed for the next number of trees that is going to come. Sometimes you pass on a piece of information in this, which is closed. It is passed for sometimes 2 generations, and then it opens. I believe in that. I have seen that. Sometimes things open much later. Sometimes they don't open in this generation, but it is passed. Then somebody has an eye for, this is what it is. Let us expand this idea. So this philosophy was there in my father and my uncle, Zia Mohidin Dagar and Zia Faruddin Dagar. They learned from their father. You don't learn everything. You learn, you gather the seeds to some things, and they lead to everything else. Like how is green coming into being? You mix yellow and blue, you get a green. But you got to have the yellow, understand the yellow, understand the blue, and how much of it to arrive at your green. So when a painter is making a green, he is not using a green, he is arriving at his green. If you don't arrive at that, then your art form is dead. So to keep the thing alive, it is very important how much you learn. And I think learning less is much better than learning a whole lot of things.